lane that way. And honestly, it doesn't work particularly well into the Azir either because he does have the Emperor's Divide and he can just dash away. The top lane is where I'm looking at here. Washida's Tryndamere, because I do think that is the hardest counter they have. Tryndamere will be able to answer Gwen later on in the game, the Undying Rage, the ability to just get on her and win those trades. I think V3 have to look to that top lane and look for that split push to be their win con.
Well, we know the win conditions, and we are going to be jumping on to the Rift for the Fukuoka SoftBank HAWKS gaming against V3 Esports. By the end of this one, a Nexus will fall, and one of these teams will finally have a win right at the end of the first round robin. And neither of them will want to be the team dropping down to 0-7. RMC, once again, we're having a little bit more of a tepid level 1, despite the engaged tools that both these teams do have to a certain extent. HAWKS getting some vision into V3's jungle, trying to scout out where Unica is starting.
Yeah, I would argue, though, that I think V3 has taken better advantage of the tepid level 1, as you described the middle court, because Hetzel dropped the ward and base to switch to sweeper, and that's why V3 doesn't want to fight, because they didn't have enough people there to win that. It would have been a 4v, however many people HAWKS had, and that bush control is often a very critical part of the early levels. When your lanes are fairly even, whoever can get that sort of first jump, first bit of damage, can often take control of the first 5 waves.
So RMC, I want to pick your brain a little bit here, because we're seeing top side buff starts from both of these junglers, and this is something that I've been seeing more and more in competitive play over the past couple of weeks. You do pretty much a full clear down towards your bot side, ready to gank. Is this a path that you feel like has come about due to the strength of AD carries in this current meta?
Partially, and I think it's also what we see a lot in the top lane. Unless your top laner is named Ray Farkey right now in the LJL, most of the lanes don't have a top laner who can just dominate right away. In fact, they've been picking a lot of scaling or hullbreaker champions. So not really a big deal ganking that lane early. You might as well path for the bot side, which oftentimes can be more volatile, especially when we're seeing these sort of engaged support come through here. So I think that's largely why we're seeing this sort of top pathing. Now, I would like to actually see some early cheese into the mid lane. I do think, especially for the side of V3 here, if you can set Dasher behind, even if you don't outright kill him, if you burn the flash, it does set up for a very nice level 6.
It also means that Dasher can't get those Flash Emperor's Divide plays off, which set up very nicely with the jungler like Xinjiao, who wants to get into that lane and gank as well. Yujo has a lot of damage in the early game, a lot of setup too. So yeah, I think pressuring into the mid lane is what we want to see. Kanatsu just pushing fairly aggressively into Washidai on this top side, as Marble and Lina are doing the same thing in bot lane. Will be forced slightly away though, and despite these pushing lanes, because of the resets that are going to come through, Unica might have an angle onto this Scuttle Crab despite Blank getting there first.
Yeah, Reyna actually didn't recall here, so is sticking around, trying to back up, but yeah, they've decided to completely disengage from this. And you don't have to fight for the Scuttle. The Scuttle honestly isn't worth that much gold anymore. Yep. It's just vision control, right? And Blank can just say, okay, I'm not going to gank bot anytime soon. I'll go gank mid. I'll go gank top. In the early game, Gwen can trade well into the Tryndamere. Tryndamere shouldn't lose that matchup. You lose control of the lane, but you shouldn't die unless the jungle decides to pay a visit.
Might do. Blank actually just choosing to take a reset. Dasher going to be doing the same. But with that wave not fully resetting, I think he wants to stick around just a little bit longer.
Yeah, that wave is definitely not resetting for Dasher.
It's in a bad place. It's in a bad place.
He's pushed it really oddly, and that Sand Soldier was still pushing. If anything, he's lucky that Unica didn't actually decide to try and stick around, punish from behind. Did have an interesting track to do that, and a very passive early game, a very respectful early game from both teams here. All the lanes don't want to over push, and you're seeing that anytime they're pushing out right now, they're dropping wards or they're just resetting to let the lanes themselves kind of reset as well.
Well, you were talking about in Champion Select how this Tryndamere from Washidai will be able to contest the Gwen as we get later into the game. At the moment, not doing too well. This is a pretty sizable CS advantage that Kanatsu has built up for himself, and with the exhaust could potentially look for a dive considering how low Washidai is, although it would be very risky.
Yeah, so the problem with the dive on the Tryndamere, and the reason why it's kind of risky, is because Tryndamere has heals and he can still crit. So there's always that sort of RNG chance, and the question is, do you feel lucky on that particular dive? I think Kanatsu is also trying to wait for that 6, and I think if we do see a dive, a solo dive come through, it will be when Kanatsu hits that 6, has that needle work, and has that small window of opportunity to try and burst down Washidai. And because Kanatsu has just does have to teleport, which Kanatsu has it, which Washidai doesn't, it guarantees pretty much that the Gwen has that little bit of an edge, and Washidai has to play a little bit carefully around that level 6.
And I don't want to harp along on this top lane too much, but we have seen an interesting first back here from Kanatsu. The Warden's Mail, which the observers briefly highlighted. This feels like a tech directly into the Tryndamere, try and reduce some of that damage. Liner now being caught up in the mid side, flash stunned, and there is no hope for the Leona. First blood for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, Middlecon, we were saying that V3 is struggling in their lanes. I like this adaptation. If you struggle in your lanes, simply just don't lane. Never mind.
Oh dear, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forced to burn the flash and take it away. Get your first blood, but taken down in the mid.
Just can't praise a team as a caster, can you?
You're not allowed to.
Cursing them. Yeah, apparently not, because just as I praise them, Yu-Gi-Oh! Just not kind of paying attention a little bit there. You could have flashed a little bit sooner. You could have flashed away, and the rest of V3 as well. They were in the area. They were on the bottom side. If you had just flashed downwards to the rest of your team, Unica could have come up to reinforce, but oh well. It's a 1-for-1, and it's a trade a little bit. The jungle, Blank getting that one for Ahugo, getting that fairly even once again. And to me, okay, fine. V3, you kind of gave that one up a little bit, but if you can continue making these proactive plays, I'm happy to forgive that.
I do want to say, though, I think it's pretty key that Dasher held onto his flash when he was making that play. So if Blank wants to go for a wraparound, it would be a possibility. Speaking of wraparounds there, Unica potentially looking for one on Taganatu, but no level 6, no Stormbringer on the Volley Bear. And honestly, just ends up being wasted time for both teams to a certain extent.
Yeah, it was pinged out that, hey, Yu-Gi-Oh's left lane here. Be careful, top. And the dive wasn't quite set up right, unfortunately. Yu-Gi-Oh was a little bit late to that, but they are going to try and punish with the blue buff a little bit. And Blank didn't know. Okay, Blank's behind now. Not what you wanted to have when you're the Xinjiao. You are an early game jungler, and granted, Volibear is early game as well. But I think the meat shield that Volibear is, combined with that Stormbringer, will just have more utility come mid-game.
He's just a pretty big boy. Pretty large lad. We've not talked about this bot lane, actually, which a little bit surprising, considering that obviously we've got Marble versus his former team in many aspects, and it's not going too well for him. Dresscode and Hetel have engineered a pretty decent CS lead for themselves so far.
Not gonna lie, Middlecon, I don't think we're gonna be talking about bot anytime soon.
It's just not. I'm trying to pivot the conversation over there. Be a good little play-by-play. Make sure that everyone gets their airtime. But yeah, it's not where the action's been happening. It's been all around the mid lane. Blank walks over a control ward. We'll spot that one out as Unica and Hetel now aggressing on towards the Drake. Liner, though, going to get caught out in the jungle.
Not again.
No aftershock for this Leona, but does dodge away from the death sentence. No blast cone, no hope, and that one goes over to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Okay, can I just point out that Lina used to be V3, like the main team support, and Hetel was the understudy in the academy team, but right now Hetel making Lina look not so good there. I love the flash over to pop the blast cone as well to secure and make sure that Lina doesn't have anywhere to go. But because they saw Unica bot, Blank is making good on that and taking topside Herald. V3 have not started up this dragon yet, and granted, the plates are good. 2 plates for a Herald, that's roughly the equation there. But you could have gone 2 plates and dragon and still can do that.
There is a potential angle. Dasher going to get forced back, but flashes back in and throws away at Yu-Gi-Oh! Every time this man gets a kill, it seems to get turned around on him.
Yeah, and again, I just want to point out, you saw the Azir. You counter-picked the Azir with the Syndra here, and this is why I was kind of just like, really? Is this your answer? It's really not working out. Dasher getting a lead, and keep in mind too, we've said before that Azir, sure, not as big in a carry as he used to be in the late game, but can still do a lot.
Ashidai being jumped onto by Kanatsu, still holding the Undying Rage, which is
Blank.
Going to be very important in a few seconds as Blank has turned up to the top side. V3's Top laner will just back away temporarily, but with the support of Unica in tow, may look to actually aggress onto this one. Rift Herald will take out this top lane tower, but how many kills was Sengoku have to lose for it? Blank already going to get taken down right at the onset as Washidai heals up and just spinning slashes away. A double kill for Unica, and the turret doesn't even go down. That's a big win for V3.
And give Washidai an Oscar, man. The way he was baiting as well. Usually you see the Tryndamere come in and you're like, okay, there must be backup. But the way Washidai was hesitating to engage as well, that's all faked. I mean, the ult was up and ready. They were just waiting for Unica and then Yu-Gi-Oh to get in position. Oh, great. We get a replay of the award winning play. So first of all, Washidai is not actually at risk of really dying here. Worst comes to worst, you pop the ult and you walk away. Looked like it, but keep in mind, he didn't even burn the heal, right? Like, or he burned the heal at the very end there. Yeah. So he still had the ult available. And then this is the part. Look at how hesitant he's pretending to be there. And then only when they've fully committed, only when Unico is in the area, then they go, okay, we pull the trigger. And the moment the mocking shout goes out, you can almost see that Blank goes, ah, crap. Like, I ain't getting out. Didn't even bother flashing for it.
You know, I love that. I love that in solo queue. Like, you'll be playing against someone. It's like, are they being stupid or do they know something that I don't? And yeah, I mean, Oscar-worthy performance from Washidai there, grabbing a couple of assists for himself. Still, I think, behind in the lane in terms of that pure 1v1, but when you got your boys to help you out, it's going to feel a lot better. Blank and Kanatsu returning to the scene of the crime will take out the first hat of the game, but V3 trading for the Infernal at least.
Yeah, and V3 actually not looking too bad. They are down in gold still. And a lot of it, of course, from that top side and the mid lane, where they are bleeding out in their lanes. But other than that, V3 are putting up a much better fight than honestly I expected for them in the early game here. And if they can keep this up, the mid game has traditionally been where the Hawks have been struggling, the decision making. And I'm not seeing that weakness for V3 right now. The decision making has been on point. It's all been about the mechanics. And if they can continue to pull the trigger first, continue to have a numbers advantage, I'm not too worried about mechanics.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Eventually, you do get to a point where you can put yourselves in such an advantageous position that mechanics don't really matter because there's nothing that the Hawks can do. Still anyone's game at this point. You have to feel 12 minutes in. Neither team has got a major lead. There are a couple of individual members on each side that are particularly strong. I think Unica and Eugeo really embodying that at the moment. But Dasher and Blank definitely not looking non-threatening either.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't even put Eigo up there because I think Dasher is more threatening right now in that 1v1. Eigo has been threatening with the rotations, with the map movements here. And I think a lot of that is coming off of Unica. But I'm still keeping my eye on Washidai for now. That huge CS discrepancy we saw has been somewhat nullified. And it is a longer lane now. I don't know if Kanatsu will continue to stay in there or start roaming. So there's an opportunity for this Tryndamere to slowly start coming online.
There's potentially an opportunity here in the mid lane as well. It seems to be the place for B. People moving around there and want to punish the Syndra, but doesn't look particularly likely, RMC.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Hetzel moving up has dissuaded most of them from wanting to do that. And we're seeing a bit of a vision war. Hetzel clearing everything in the river all the way up, and then Raina just resetting everything all the way down here. There's no dragon, so it's really just about giving the lanes a bit of space, isolation, making sure that Hetzel doesn't get to roam up, and instead you get locked down there with Marble and Dress Code once again, and this bot lane where nothing is happening whatsoever continues to just be their own little, island, as it were.
We could potentially see something. Gale Force has now been completed for Dress Code, and we've seen, I think Utapon was a clear example of using that aggressively to secure engages, to secure fights that are going to go in your favor and secure kills as well. Yuji taking a fair bit of damage from the Leandry's Azir in the mid lane, level 11 for Dasher as well. This Azir has crested the mid game, the early game very, very nicely, and 30 CS up, 1-1. That mythic complete is starting to get to a pretty scary point already.
Yeah, once the Leandry completes, that's when it starts to come online. The poke is really, really nasty as well. But bot side, Dress Code has taken this turret.
And Unica is looking to take out Marble, cleanses away very nicely, but the Solar Flare combined with the stun, there's just not enough damage to take out the Hawks AD carry. But 2 summoners burnt on the Jinx means that play in a couple minutes time gets yourself a kill.
Yeah, it was the most quiet lane here, middle court. We didn't see a lot of kills, but quietly Dress Code was taking that turret, punishing away, and it says a lot too that Dress Code and Hetzel are winning that lane against Marble and Reina, because we've already touched on Reina and Hetzel and the fact that, hey, this was the main team support versus Academy support, but Marble too, right? He was the player that V3 Academy played for. Dress Code coming in after a year off, and we don't have a lot of data on him. We're wondering, hey, is Dress Code sort of a stopgap measure because of Marble leaving and them not expecting it? But it doesn't look like it. Dress Code won that 2v2.
Yeah, been performing admirably and has got himself a small but definitely meaningful advantage thus far. Blank grabbing that Herald. Mid lane tower is looking pretty low. If Shirley headbutts that one, it's going to go down in just a second time. Dress Code, though, still standing up, still looking to defend this, and Blank not summoning the Herald yet. Maybe Hawks are saving it for this Drake, which is spawning in just under a minute's time.
Yeah, there's absolutely no rush to drop it. In fact, they could even look to drop it top with Dasher here, right? Take that top side turret, because it's actually worth more now that we're past the 14-minute marks. Side inner turrets have that extra gold. And granted, you know, cracking mid opens up a lot of control on the map. But if you're going to play towards the bot side of the map and the dragon, threatening inhibitor is so much more impactful.
Hawks need to be careful. Blank, a little bit in no man's land here. Dasher has just abandoned him for the waves. Doesn't want to get involved with that. It's just a single kill, but it's still that turret gold going over to the Azir, like we talked about. That's going to be oh so important, but it does mean that Hawks are a man down when it comes to this potential Drake fight.
It's not just the man down, middle class. That's your jungler. That was your smite control.
Going forward, lands the Moonlight Vigil, forces Liner to flash away as well. That is what we were talking about. Aggressive plays with the Gale Force, what the Aphelios can offer. And now, if it wasn't already secured, V3 can just walk into this pit, to this river, take down the Drake, grab their second one, and accelerate themselves towards a potential soul.
I'm sorry, I gotta go back. That's your jungler.
You
Black
need him.
going down.
He needs
exactly. And Dasher had the Emperor's Divide. Like, just go back and bail him out. Just drop an Emperor's Divide for him. Oh my goodness, it's just brutal watching that, and I feel like that's symptomatic of what has plagued the Hawks here. The team's not trusting each other, the team's not playing together. It feels like Dasher's just kind of gone, you know what, I don't really trust my team anymore. I'm just going to try and solo carry this, and the way I do that is by not dying. Maybe it's the right call. I mean, Dasher has put up the best numbers so far, but it's not what you'd like to see as a fan of the Hawks.
I'll play devil's advocate for Dasher. I think the more time that he's got on the map, the more time that he can spend farming and getting towards these items, it is fundamentally good for the Hawks, as Hetzel has perhaps overstayed his welcome here. Will throw up the box, the wind becomes lightning, and the final hit from Dasher secures his second kill of the game. And this is what we're talking about, continuing to get gold, continuing to get resources onto this Azir. Maybe he is playing a bit greedy at points, but if Hawks can pick up their first win, I'm sure they're not going to be complaining.
If they can pick up the first win. I hate that we're even saying if here. I
know,
both of us are
it's so painful.
Yeah, but they are down kills, and granted, kills aren't everything. The gold is still in favor of the Hawks here. Their mechanics are still shining through. They still have a lot to leverage here, and Marble is scaling up as well. It's just, this is a little bit worrying to see the Hawks win like this. We wanted to see a definitive win. The Hawks have the longest game time of any team, but it's all been in losses. I'd like to see a fast win.
Another Moonlight Vigil, but the death sentence not quite there from Hetzel. Really, targets are genuinely pretty easy to hook down. They're not coming through in the end there. We're getting a bit of a J-Ram at the moment, RMC, and there's not really anything that both these teams can look at so far.
Theoretically, at this point in the game, if the two teams J-Ram here, Hawks should win. They've got the better poke with Dasher here, but it just doesn't look like they want to sit there and actually push this. They don't want the risk of Syndra being able to burst one of them down. And we're getting to see, you know, the split push happening, Washida versus Kanatsu. And for now, Kanatsu's still doing pretty well into the Tryndamere junglers.
Yeah, Unica, a little bit not sure whether he wants to go in or wants to go out. Committed the ultimate will result in Washidai going down, and it's another one for Kanatsu. Yugio's going to have to run himself out of there. V3 majorly dropping the ball.
Yeah, and huge props to that rocket as well, because Washidai did not see the rocket incoming, had ultimate, didn't press R because he was not expecting the explosion to just come out. And I think it actually ran through the wall as well. So very, very little warning time. And now that might be what the Hawks need to break this game open. They've been struggling to really find anything after they took that top side. The push has not been great, but with a man down, V3 can't defend any of their turrets mid or bot.
And this is a big influx of gold for the Hawks. They were marginally ahead just a couple of minutes ago, but I think that's well and truly got to a significant advantage. 4,000 gold at 20 minutes. Definitely nothing to complain about. We've got a second item completed onto Dasher as well. As what have we got here? VT trying to make plays on the bottom side of the map, but it really doesn't work out for them.
Yeah, and the moment Unica kind of walked into blank, that was a problem. Unica ulted late as well. And okay, the rocket didn't go through the wall, but still, no time to react. And the amount of particles as well just going on, the circle, the Venn diagram of chaos happening there. I certainly wouldn't have had the reflex just to dodge out the rocket or even press R in that situation.
And now the Hawks are in a great position where if Kanatsu wants to, he could just go bot lane, play with TP. There would be no response from V3, and they can look to just pull them apart and really destroy them all across the map. Not going to be the case for now, though, as the Gwen is well and truly posted up in that top side. The rest of Hawks really pressuring around the top side of the map as well. But I wouldn't want to give over that Ocean Drake to V3, putting them onto Soul Point. It feels like giving them an unnecessary advantage.
Agreed. And because the Hawks gave up the first two dragons here, they really want to be the ones dealing with this. And we touched on the fact that Azir's poke is really good now that he has that Leandries, has the Void Staff as well. If you give up the Ocean, it actually negates a lot of that strength that current spellcaster Azir has, the poke Azir, and not the all-in auto attack Azir as well. So Hawks definitely setting up for this one. It's still a bit ways away, and for V3, they can kind of say, okay, we'll cede this dragon to you. We don't care. We want to take top side. That's okay for them. And if they can also, while they're doing that, get control over Baron, I think that's a worthwhile trade.
And Washida is listening to you. Smacking down this top lane tower. Gonna grab the second one for the V3 in this game. And Blank just soloing up the Drake. Takes that away nice and easy. Means that we're a bit less likely to see that soul coming through. I don't think Hawks are going to be complaining about that one too much. They're already in a pretty good position. V3, though, it's a win condition slipping away.
Yeah, for the Hawks, it's more about denying it, right? If they get Soul, they'll be very happy, but I'll also be very depressed because the game would have run
something would have gone wrong if the Hawks end up picking up a Soul in this game.
Agreed. So yeah, for them, it's more just denying it away from the side of V3. Now, Hetzel did a great job as well, clearing out the Baron area. But V3, after clearing out the top side, have decided we're not playing to the top side. I really don't know why they're looking at the dragon area whatsoever. There is nothing there for you. Send Washidai down, maybe. Just one person to split push on that bot side, and the rest of you should be pressuring that top side. There is a pushing wave top as well that will be pushing against V3 shortly, because Dasher's up there proving that one. And in the mid wave, what are you doing? You can't push into this Jinx right now unless you get a pick of some sort. And with that cleanse, I just don't see the pick happening.
And this is the thing that has been perplexing me regarding V3 this whole split so far. Yes, you could talk about the player diff, but the way that they played the macro game in Academy was very exceptional. They utilized vision properly. They set up for fights very, very well. And maybe that was coming from Marble. Maybe something else just isn't clicking right now. But these hallmarks of V3 Academy aren't showing through onto the main roster, and it means that it's so difficult for them to play out games when they find themselves in situations like this, where a lot of the things that they're trying to do are being contested, and a lot of things that they're trying to do aren't ultimately beneficial. Marble forced a Gale Force away from Washide, who was going to all-in him under this tower in the mid lane, pops the Undying Rage, and then just spinning slashes in the wrong direction. Will be chased down by Blank now.
Oh no.
That's bad, man. That's not what you want to be doing on this Tryndamere.
Bad is an understatement, Middlecon, because now no one can match Kanatsu. The moment they send anybody to match Kanatsu, Hawks can just go for Baron. Kanatsu has a teleport here, and Washide was a big part of their sort of threat around the Baron pit as well. For now, though, Hawks, they're not risking the Baron here. They're leaving Kanatsu split pushing, and they're looking to siege up the Nyx wave. It's just arrived.
I love these Azir towers, man. They just offer you so much free pressure in the mid lane. Feels a little bit unnecessary. Blank going forward onto Hetzel. Pops into that stopwatch as the stun comes through, but will not connect onto anyone. Into the
Oh,
back line
Dasher!
goes Dasher! And that's why he's the carry for the Hawks. Yes, he'll pay with his life, but he gives 2 over for his team.
And the Leandri's burn from Dasher actually picks up Hetzel on the back end. So that is a 1 for 3 there. They don't quite get the turret though. And while I applaud getting kills, that's nice. What does it really net you, right? You're not getting the Baron. We get to re-watch this as well. And really, there's nothing to say here. It's just the Hawks finally deciding to pull the trigger. It's actually kind of risky to go under the turret like that. But if you can do this under the turret, why don't you just go for a Baron dance and look to do it at the Baron? Then you don't have to risk losing Dasher. You don't have to risk losing Blank.
Because it means you can make stylish plays like that, RMC.
Fair.
That's going in a montage somewhere. Once we get a little bit later into the split, I'm sure we'll call back to that one a couple of times. And Dasher being sort of the big playmaker for his team, it's kind of what he does, but ultimately he's got a team around him this game, and I think that's the most important thing. Kidatsu looking very strong. Blank has been excellent, and Marble 2-0 and 3 items on the Jinx, a scary carry coming out of the bot lane.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the success we're seeing them have right now in the mid game is coming from the fact that they're not being pushed. The question mark around Hawks this split so far has been their decision making. And if you're not rushing them, if you're not really forcing them to make decisions, they look perfectly fine, as we're seeing right now. V3 though, you said it in the pre-show, and I think it was a bit of a joke saying that V3 don't have to worry about the mid game because they've never gotten there. But it's kind of looking that way right now. The early game looked decisive. They got those early ganks and those early kills, and then now we're kind of hitting the mid game point, and what happened to all that decisiveness? They've just kind of been sitting back and letting the game happen to them.
And that's not a good place to be in. That's not letting the game happen. A double stun, hook landing onto Liner, good chip damage, good poke damage onto the Hawks members, but it's not going to result in anything. The Jinx can just heal all of that back up. Drake spawning in 15 seconds, and once again, V3 find themselves on the wrong side of the map to contest this.
I don't know if there is a right side of the map for V3 right now. Like with the way they've been playing, it just feels like they're not ever at the objectives. And last time I could excuse it if you're setting up for Baron and taking a turret. But this time, what? Are you rushing Baron? Because if you're not, you're just behind right now on pretty much anything. You're not getting anything out of this group up here. And Blank could have soloed it. Dasher came over to help a little bit as well. And the entire rest of the time, Marble just pushing them off the Baron here. The Hawks with a 5k gold lead. I think the Hawks should be looking to begin the Baron dance at this point. Get the vision down, draw out V3 here. TP from Kinatsu is still up, was never actually used with all that split pushing. So just send Kinatsu down there and go back to what has worked for you so far.
And we're beginning to see that, that was very cheeky there, Dasher. Understands exactly the potential risks of de-warding Baron as a solo laner. It's pretty close to that Rabadon's death cap, and we're really seeing massive itemization spikes come on for multiple members of the Hawks. Now, we already talked about 3 items on Marble. Well, we've got 3 items on Kinatsu as well, opting towards that Randuin's Omen, which I just love here. You know that it's going to be Washidai and Jesco doing the damage. And with this item, they don't.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to that Warden's Mill we saw picked up first, right? And I'm like, okay, so they held it till now. I actually really like the build path because I think it specifically into Tryndamere, it does a lot. Oh my goodness, they just forced out the Stormbringer just like that off of Unica. What?
And they're getting stuff for free, or very cheap at least. If you're investing a zap for an ult, do you know what? That's worth it in my opinion. Once again, the Hawks posting up in this mid lane. Still yet to take down this tower, the final outer tower, but I'm sure with only Hetzel and Washidai to defend it, it's going to fall in just a moment's time.
Yeah.
And now we do need to see Hawks translate, because we're getting towards 30 minutes and there hasn't really been an earnest attempt at starting that Baron. Yeah, they've been playing their time. Yeah, they've been biding their time, but at some point you do just need to win the game.
Yeah. Oh, the Death Bush? Are they? Oh, okay. Got spotted. Never mind.
Unica, though, also landing himself away. Again, like Hawks, it just doesn't feel like they've got that killer instinct at the moment.
I wonder if this is because they're scared. Like they've had so many bad games that they're just afraid to go for it. But now they've finally gone for it. Keep in mind, with the control ward in the pit, that blue trinket ward is not showing anything. And Dasher trying to hold the choke point here. Baron's already half gone.
Yeah, they've got so much DPS that the Zir doesn't even need to be in there. He will join the fray now as the Baron is taken down. A TP comes through from Eugeo and gets the stun onto 2 people, but it's so difficult for VT to actually find access into this fight. Washida is on one side of this wall as Hawks are all being corralled towards this top side. The Baron recalls not going to come through just yet as the mocking shout is thrown up. Eugeo looking for something over the wall as Washida is continuing to go forward. V3 are teasing the engage, but they're just not going for it.
Because they can't middle caught. They don't have attack. Unica burnt the Stormbringer earlier and it's still not back off cooldown. So Washida should be the one initiating, but he's not confident he'll survive. He's afraid of the CC that can come out as well. And unfortunately for V3, they've just kind of sat by and watched as Baron goes to the Hawks. And before, the Hawks were struggling. They take the inner turrets, but that's about as far as they can go. The lane gets too long after that and they weren't confident. But now with Baron buff, with an 8 or 7,500 gold lead here, all Hawks need to do is just group up and shove a lane together here, and they should be able to take it. V3 don't have a good way to match the poke and the range that the Hawks have.
Dasher, that play that you made under tier 2 tower, let's have that again, buddy, under an in tower. That's all I want to see. Some killer instincts, some actually pushing this advantage, because I think this game probably shouldn't still be happening considering the lead that the Hawks have got for themselves. But do you know what? They're keeping it nice and calm. They're trying to keep it nice and collected. You can't fault a team that's 0-6 for wanting to secure their first win in as clean a fashion as possible. But it does give V3 a bit more time, a couple of angles to move into this play. Dresscode has now got 3 items on the Aphelios, but Kinatsu just slight pushing for free.
Yeah, and look at that turret already getting so low here. The siege cannon will take it down at the rate they're going. V3 need to respond to this here. Washida looking for a flank.
Yeah,
looking for a flank.
Looking for a flank. It's not going to find it though. Just pulls back into the mid lane to answer Blank. And Unica has already been taken to 30% HP. It's so difficult for this volley bear to engage at this point, and with no tower to defend them, Hawks can just push further forward. Inhib is going to be the focus now, and V3, you need to pull the trigger at some point. Unica jumps right down onto all fours and doesn't go for it.
Yeah, because Unica's half dead. You need to reset and heal up and then pull the trigger, but you hesitated. You tried to pull the trigger on a half-cocked gun, and now you lose the inhibitor for free. They're just going to reset, go for mid once again, and it's B3, like you said, just pull the trigger one way or another. Washida, Unica, I don't care who, but look for a pick.
B3, you do not want to lose this game. You do not want to go 0-7. Hawks will relent with the pressure now as the Baron buff is falling away, but they could just retreat back to this Ocean Drake, and RMC, Hawks are going to be on soul point.
Middlecott, there's a timer. I've got 5 minutes before I get very depressed watching this game. I mean, I said it. If Hawks get so, I'm going to be very depressed. And it's looking like it here. They had a bit of time left on the Baron buff. They could have tried to break that mid inhibitor turret, but it's important they take the bot side inhib, because now Hawks, even without the Baron buff, can still siege up the mid lane, can still siege up the top lane. They can go 4-1, and they'll effectively have an additional force pushing the bot side. Washida's lack of teleport has been coming back to bite B3, and with an inhibitor down, if the split push gets executed properly, it's definitely going to hurt them.
It will do. You're V3 right now, RMC. And you're looking at the state of this game. 8,000 gold behind, down a soul point, missed out on a Baron as well. Who are you looking for to carry? Who do you think can make this big play, and who does the big play need to be on if you want to stay in this game? As Unica is being jumped onto once again, Will Lantern himself away, as Kanatsu is being soloed out by Washida on the other side. Jinzhao continuing to go forward and just stancing up to V3, forcing them out of their own jungle.
Well, I'll tell you who not to engage on for V3, and that is Blank. He's tanky enough that he's not going to go down. I think it's got to be Washida at this point, unfortunately. I think Ayugo's sort of time has passed, and now it's very difficult to look for the pick. And Washida needs to find a flank onto Marble. If you kill Marble, if you kill Dasher, there's a chance. They're engaging on Blank.
Yeah, Moonlight Vigil already popped. The Crescent Guard isn't available, but he's just able to walk himself away.
Okay, the flag.
Going into the backline with no Fury gets bopped out, and the Exhausted on him as well. The Trinity is not going to do any damage as here comes Kanatsu, throwing the needles into multiple members of the three, forcing those health bars so low, and more pressure for more pressure for the Hawks. More towers taken, more inhibs taken. V3, they needed to pull the trigger for the last 15 minutes of this damn game, but they just haven't done it, and now they're going to be falling down to a triple inhib state. Hettel running forward, looking for a hook, but doesn't find it. Oh, this is just sad to see from V3, honestly.
For V3, you have a choice to make at this point. And the choice is, are you going to just slowly get choked out, or are you going to go out in a blaze of glory? And if you want to go in a blaze of glory, you need to just shove out the side lanes and then force the fight. That is literally your only option left. Don't put this fight because the side waves are about to push in, but just reset a little bit and go for this. If you wait any longer, Baron's coming up in 20 seconds as well. And if you try and dance a tango at the Baron, you're going to lose out because supers are pushing in. And if you don't, and you wait for the Hawks to pick up Baron, you have no chance of winning a fight. So V3, very, very tight timeline. Shove, 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 shove. Go to Baron, force the fight ASAP.
I'm scared with that teleport, though, that Dasher sees them move towards the Baron and just goes into the base and ends the game. You can do that on this, as it does a hell of a lot of damage to towers.
True.
The Hawks are setting up for this Baron. Kanatu jumping over the wall, taking away that blast cone. We've already seen one Baron steal today, and if V3 were to get one, it would buy them a lot of time. Unica's not going to be able to do it, though, as he's taken out right at the onset of the fight. Washidai diving onto the backline and doesn't have time to ult either. The Leona will be the sacrifice in the front liners. That's so much damage onto Dresco. Blank diving forward. The cleanse used, and maybe the Xinjiao has overextended the stopwatch to buy a little bit of time, and that means that the rest of Hawks are able to move up, are able to defend him, are able to push forward. Ayujo on no mana will have to return to the fountain. Dress code low on HP as well. V3 have to make their final stand here.
The final stand is already done. Middlecon, it was when they tried to go for that fight, when the top and jungle both did not get their ults. This is just cleanup for the Hawks here, and congratulations to the Hawks. It took 37 minutes, just